Thank you for tuning in. Today we will be talking about a major topic during the Industrial Revolution, specifically the working conditions a child would experience in the working environments at that time.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty parts, I think that we should talk about what child labor is. Child labor refers to the employment of children in any workforce that deprives children from their childhood and interferes with their childhood.
These children at the time mainly worked in farming, home-based operations, factories, mining, and in services such as newsboys. Some worked night shifts lasting 12 hours a day. During the harsh times, children would wake up as early as 4 o'clock in the morning and walk to the workplace at 5 a.m. Around noon, these children would receive a 40-minute lunch break. These breaks were the only breaks that these children would receive every day.
They were often sluggish during the afternoon and evening hours. If these children started to get tired and sluggish, in order to keep them awake, the company managers would whip them.
Children often began to actively participate in activities such as child rearing, hunting, and farming as soon as they are considered adults by their society. In many different societies, children are considered old enough to work as young as 13.
However, preventing children from participating in productive work would be more harmful to their welfare. Most pre-industrial skill and knowledge were amenable to being passed down through direct mentoring or apprenticing by parents.
With the onset of the Industrial Revolution in Britain in the late 18th century, there was a rapid increase in the industrial exploitation of child labor. Children as young as 4 were working in production factories with long working hours in most fatal working conditions.
Speaking of dangerous work environments, children who would work in the coal mines would crawl through tunnels too narrow and low for adults.
Children also worked as errand boys, cross sweepers, shoe blacks, and selling matches, flowers, and other cheap goods. Some children undertook work as apprentices to respectable trades, such as building or as domestic servants. Working hours were long. Builders worked 64 hours a week, 52 in the summer, and while they're working those long weeks, domestic servants are working 80-hour weeks. Sometimes even part-time work may hinder school attendance or performance. On the other hand, many poor children work for resources to attend school. Children who were not doing well in school would often go to the workplace for a more satisfactory experience in that certain kind of work.
So after kids have endured all of this suffering, the government finally realized how dangerous these conditions were, and then they decided to add laws. The first act to regulate child labor in Britain was passed in 1803, as early as 1802 and 1819. Factory acts were passed to regulate the working hours of workhouse children in factories and cotton mills to 12 hours per day.
The International Labor Organization, also referred to as the ILO, suggests that poverty is the greatest single cause behind child labor. Income from a child's work is usually crucial for his or her own survival, and for that of the household. Income from working children may be between 25 and 40% of the household.
There were illegal taxes passed, and one of these taxes was the head tax in the British and French colonial empires. The tax was imposed on everyone older than 8 years old to pay these taxes and cover living expenses. Children in colonial households had to work
Because they have nothing better to do. Even when schools are sometimes available, they are either too far away, difficult to reach, or unaffordable, or the quality of the education is so poor that parents wonder if going to school is even worth it. Some view that work is good for the character building and skill development of children. From European settlement in 1788, convicts were occasionally sent to Australia where they were made to work. Child labor was not as excessive as in Australia as it was in Britain. Child labor laws in Australia differ from state to state. Generally, children can work at any age, but restrictions exist for children under the age of 15. These restrictions apply to work hours and the type of work that children can perform. In all states, children are obliged to attend school until a minimum leaving age.
Work that many children took part in was not always visible, legal, or paid. Free or slave labor was a common occurrence for many youths and was a part of everyday lives. Child labor first started to occur in England when household businesses were turned into local labor markets that mass-produced homemade goods. Due to many children being illegally employed, the Indian government began to take extensive actions to reduce the number of children working to focus on the importance of facilitating the proper growth and development of children.
Almost every country in the world has laws relating to and aimed at preventing child labor. The International Labor Organization, also referred to as the ILO, helped set international law, which most countries have signed and ratified.
Children were wanted and desired in Ireland for the use of their labor on the family farm. Irish parents felt that it was the children's duty to carry out the chores of the family farm.
The United States has passed a law that allows Amish children older than 14 to work in traditional wood enterprises with proper supervision.
Stay tuned after the break. We will dive deeper into the heart of child labor during the Industrial Revolution. Also, introduce a new segment and later surprise guests, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. So Tobias, what do you got for us?
Some scholars suggest the need for laws that place a blanket ban on any work by children of the age of 18 years old. Some scholars suggest any labor by children of the age of 18 years or less is wrong since this encourages illiteracy. In other words, there are moral and economic reasons that justify a blanket ban on any labor from children of the age of 18 years or less everywhere in the world. Other scholars suggest that these arguments are flawed, ignores history, and more laws will do more harm than good. According to them, child labor is merely the symptom of a greater disease named poverty. This will increase the abuse of children. Child labor is not a choice, it's a necessity and the only option for survival.
The cocoa industry was accused of profiting from child slavery and trafficking. The European Cocoa Association dismissed these accusations as false and excessive. The industry said that the reports were non-representative of all areas.
Later, the industry acknowledged that the working conditions for children were unsatisfactory and that children's rights were sometimes violated.
Before the Industrial Revolution, virtually all children worked in farming. During the Industrial Revolution, many of those children moved from farm work to factory work. Over the time, as real wages rose, parents became able to afford to send their children to school instead of work. As a result of child labor declined.
Now it is time for a new segment on the show. We are calling it Story Time. Each of us has a story of a child who worked during the Industrial Revolution. These stories were sent by the Mental Floss. While there are quite a few children in this image of shrimp pickers, the youngest child is 8 years old. And while not pictured in this photo, the youngest boys employed by the company were only 5. These employees would spend all day shelling shrimp until their fingers bled. And of course, the acid in the salt water only worsened the pain.
This boy lost his leg when he was only 11. When working as a trapper, he got stuck in between 2 cars. The company determined it was his fault and refused to offer him any compensation. Even after the accident, his father continued to work at the mine. Hunched over a tiny table, Mrs. Gay and her children, aged from 5 to 13, would work to set stones in inexpensive jewelry pieces. The Gays were lucky in that their children could attend school. After the children got out of school each day, they would work into the evening, all so that the family can earn an extra $5 a week.
These children had 14 to 16-hour shift days and mainly worked in dangerous and unsanitary factories. Any injuries caused to the kids weren't covered by health insurance.
Despite the injuries and brutal work that these children endured, they are missing out on their education. The children went to their work for years and years, and they were risking their education for pennies to support their family. Education comes first before any occupation or activity.
And that's it for this new segment of Storytime. Don't go away, we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. So while you were gone, we have a surprise guest here. Everyone, I would like you to meet Christine Andrea.
Woo!
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I am a huge fan of your show.
So, Christine, there's been a rumor going around that you support child labor. Is this true?
Yes, that is true. I do support child labor. I don't see anything wrong.
But why should children work at such a young age? Wouldn't you think that they should enjoy their childhood?
Well, you see, in developing countries, family incomes always have been below poverty level, and lifestyle has always remained worse and uncomfortable. To ease the situation, some incomes from mature children can have a big income on families. Therefore, I am very much in favor of child labor.
Isn't working long hours and getting few breaks taken away from child's education, which is supposed to allow them to have a better future for themselves and families?
You're right, Tobias. These children are sacrificing their education for a job that has low wages.
Well, it is unethical to use children as a cheap source of labor. But think about a poor family of 6 members where the only earnable person is the father. So banning child labor completely is not the solution, since families will receive a smaller income.
So do you have any suggestions for solutions to the shortage of work in the world?
Labor shortage is a huge problem in some countries, but this problem can be solved if those societies give permission to children to work outside. That would not only compensate the shortage of labor, but also would help the poor families.
Thanks for tuning in. Tell us what you think about child labor, and tune in next week to hear us discuss about how brutal World War II was.
You didn't count. Crawl through tunnels to narrow and lower down for adults. Oh, why did I stutter? Would crawl through tunnels and narrow and low for adults.
Children.
Too narrow and low for adults. Children. Before the Industrial Revolution, virtually all children worked in farming.
Thanks for tuning in. Tell us what you think about child labor, and tune in next week to hear us My nipples went to France.
I'm so dead. Okay.
Thanks for tuning in. Tell us what you think about child labor, and tune in next week to hear us discuss about what was I gonna say?
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so why do children have to work at such a Stop! Okay, so why did the children have to work at such